And one of the other things that some of you may have noticed that will be fixed is that in some circumstances within the cataloguing client now, you may find, slightly disconcertingly I might add, that when you've done a search and view a record, there are certain unique set of circumstances which will cause the record to display in a format different from the format that you might have specified as your last display format. So we plan to release the upgrade to the cataloguing client at the latest in the start of 2009. And so, I'm moving on there. I was going to say that that we've just started, just as of today really, the software is being installed in our test environment, and we're going to be testing it through November, and really depending on the outcome of that testing will determine the actual implementation date. We're currently pitching for a date late November, early December, but as anybody who's ever done a software upgrade will know that a 1 month testing and implementation timeframe is fairly ambitious, and so there may be some slip in that. The other thing to mention is that a lot of the work for this upgrade, the installation of the software, is actually being done by our colleagues at OCLC in Leiden in the Netherlands. Over the past year, we've reached an agreement with OCLC whereby they're going to actually do a lot more of the system support for the cataloguing service from Leiden. This means that we, rather than trying to manage this locally in Canberra, we'll be able to draw on the full resources of OCLC in Leiden for managing the installation, upgrading and operation of the software. And the CBS 4.1 upgrade is the first of the big things that will be done under that agreement. The other thing I'd like to also mention is that we are planning to upgrade the actual client software. That's the bit that sits on your PC, and this upgrade we had planned to do this year, but due to a number of factors, including availability of staff resources in our unit, we haven't been able to do that. But we're planning to do that early in 2009. The upgrade will include fixes for a number of minor glitches that have been reported to us, including a permanent fix for the problems with the display of the special characters bar, and also an improved record copy cataloguing script. Some of the scripts that you'll be using delete the notes fields, the 5xx fields, and obviously that's not our preferred option there. And later in 2009 we'll be doing another upgrade to CBS version 5, and this upgrade will allow us to, we'll be implementing what we're calling the CBS Job Manager, which will provide an improved interface for National Bibliographic Database section staff to actually manage the data, updating jobs, running matching and merging, and configuring matching and merging, configuring and running global change jobs. And our aim there is to have more control over how the jobs are run and when they're run, and hopefully that will enable us to be more responsive to your requests for things like global changes. And one of the nice things that's happened over the past year is that the National Library of Australia prepared a specification for this development, and there are around 7 or 8 other libraries, including major national and state libraries in Europe, who are using CBS, and they've all signed on to co-fund this development. So it's rather nice that that's one of the benefits of the CBS software, that it has a solid user base, not in Australia but overseas, and they in similar businesses to Libraries Australia, so they were able to see the benefit for them of the development that we wanted, and were happy to put their hands up to share a part of the funding of that. So that'll be later in 2009. I'll move on now to talk about RDA just a little bit, and I'll have to be on my best behaviour, because if a meteor was to strike this room right now, the Australian implementation of RDA would be seriously compromised, because I think we have just about everybody in Australia who is involved in the drafting and or implementation of RDA with us. And maybe maybe I'll do 2 things at this point. The first thing is to get the blood flowing slightly, and Those of you who are coming to the ACOC seminar tomorrow, would you like to stand up? Yeah, you just don't know, it's too easy. That's too easy. Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of you. Not everybody. Those who aren't coming, maybe just give me a few. Oh yeah, so there's about 20% not coming. Okay, the intention of what I'm about to say now is really just to give you a little bit of a background as to what Libraries Australia is thinking about RDA, but without, obviously in the time available, I won't be able to say too much. What I might do though, given that we have a tea break and things later in the day, I might just ask those people who I just referred to, I might just introduce them briefly. So if you want to talk about RDA more later in the day, you know who to look for. Is Deirdre here? Deirdre Kurgard. Deirdre's the chairperson of JSC, so the Joint Steering Committee for the development of RDA, and obviously has had a large input into the development of it and its implementation. So Deirdre's here. There are, I think, Anne Huthwaite and possibly Eb Cartus from the Australian Committee on Cataloguing are here. Are you here? Anne's here, great. Also Pam Gatenby from the National Library, who is also the Australian representative on the RDA Committee of Principals, is here. And finally, Catherine Argus, who's from the National Library, who is the National Library, will be the National Library's manager of all things to do with the RDA implementation. So I better be on my best behaviour here now. But as I said, for those of you who aren't coming, I just mentioned very briefly, I think the general expectation at the moment is that RDA will be implemented in Australia in early 2010. That's the sort of timeline that we're looking at. And so I wanted to just say a few things about Libraries Australia, and that is that Libraries Australia is committed to supporting the creation and exchange of RDA data from the agreed Australian implementation date, whenever that is. That's still to be determined, obviously.